Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of integrating CSS. This is where we're going to move from an internal and inline style to an external style sheet. It's important to have external style sheets for future use so that when you create multiple pages, those pages can all talk to the same style sheet. So when you make one change, like a font change, it cascades across all of your pages. Seems kind of crazy right now that we're preparing for that, but you're going to be creating a full web page, and so it's important, or website, not just a web page, where multiple pages are linked together and users can travel through those pages. So it's important that you create an external style sheet. To do this, we're going to go ahead and go back to Dreamweaver, and we've created an inline style and we've created an internal style up in our head with a style tag. And now we're going to create an external style. An external style is where you have a file outside of this file, index.html, and they are linked together. That way, if you create more files, like page 1, page 2, page 3, they can all link to the same CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. So I'm going to go up to File, New, and you can see here that I get the option to create a CSS file. In the CSS file, I'm going to go ahead and hit Create, and it will say that I'm using a character set of UTF-8 and the CSS document. You can leave all that. That's just basic coding like the HTML doc type right here that makes it so that your page can be read in the right code. Right now it's called Untitled 1, and you can see it's not showing over here in my files because I haven't saved it. So I'm going to go to File, Save, and when I save it, I want to make sure I'm in the same folder as my index file in my notes webpage, and I'm going to name this. It's very important when we're naming files for the web that we name them consistently. So if you're going to do all caps, stick to all caps. If you're going to do all lowercase, stick to all lowercase. I don't necessarily recommend mixing them unless you're doing like camel case, if you're somebody who's coded in Python or Java or something like that before. But you should really stick to something very consistent. So I'm going to stick to all lowercase. And the other thing that is important is that you need to stick to no spaces in file names. Spaces in file names get very confusing for the browser. So if you go here to my page for notes, I actually have a space on Notes website. And you can see that that space has been replaced by a %20. Anytime you type a space, it's replaced by a %20, which can actually confuse the browser pretty easily when it's trying to travel around. So we don't want spaces in our file names. We want to use underscores or camel case. So I'm going to call this note styles.css because it is a CSS file, not an HTML file. So I'm going to go ahead and name that and hit save. Okay, so I've got a note styles. You can see it's now appearing in my files over here. I can now code. So I'm going to go to paragraph, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a border. So I'm going to put border of 1 pixel, and I can also make it solid, and I can make it black. All right. So at that point, I've got my border that's solid and black. I'm going to save this. All right, great. Paragraph, border, solid, black. Go back to my index. No solid black borders. Why? Files aren't linked yet. This HTML file, index.html, is not talking to this one, and it's not talking back. I need to make them talk to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into my head for my page, and I'm going to link a style in here. To create a link to an external style sheet, we're going to need to go ahead and create what's called a link. So we're going to do a link tag. This is going to be a standalone tag because we're just saying we're linking to this. There's no opening, there's no closing for a link like you would with an anchor tag where you're saying this piece of text or this image is a link. You're instead just creating a link. And so this is linking to another file. We're linking to the file called notes styles.css. So what we want to do is we first want to say this is a style sheet. So we're going to use rel for relative to what type of file it is. And we're going to use an equal sign and quotation marks for that attribute to say this is relative to one of these items. And you can see what's really cool when you're using Dreamweaver is that it will auto-generate a bunch of options for this attribute. So it will say, what do you want the value to be? You've got lots of different values you can choose from, and one of those values is going to be a style sheet if you scroll through here. You can also just type the word style sheet. You don't have to use these drop-down menus, but they are really useful if you don't know what the options are. So I'm going to put in style sheet, and then we need to say, okay, this is going to be a style sheet that is a type of CSS, not a JavaScript style sheet. So there's two types of JavaScript style sheets. We want to make sure that, or two types of links, and we want to make sure that it's using CSS and not JavaScript, because CSS and JavaScript are two totally different coding programs or languages, and they do totally different things. So text/CSS is what we want to choose. And then we need to say where to get the file. So the file is called notestyles.css. And I think what's really important is these files are sitting next to each other, which means that we can just say the style sheet's name, file name, and link it because they're sitting next to each other. If it was in a folder, we would have to help the computer navigate inside that folder and then be able to find the file. So just like you do for an anchor tag, you're going to do a hyperlink reference or an href. And then you can see here by default, it's going to show me what's in this folder. And since notestyles.css is right next to it, it's going to link me to it. So I can choose that, and now I've got my link. So now remember that on your notestyles.css, you put a border on this paragraph of 1 pixel wide, a solid border instead of like a dash with a black color. And this is the simplified version of a border style. And when you were working at the box model, you kind of looked at borders. You have border width, where you could put 1 pixel. You have border style, where you could put solid. And then you have border color, where you could put black. But instead of having all three of those, you can do the simplified condensed version of a border and put them all in one tag. You just have to put them in the same order of width first, then style, then color. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to just having that simplified version. And what we want is we want this to apply over in our index. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click up here. I might have to refresh my page, and now I've got a border on all of my paragraphs. And notice it's cascading across my paragraphs. Even though this file is linked out here, anytime it finds a border tag, it will apply. What's really cool now too is that now that I have this link here and it's working, notice note styles is underneath index for source code and note styles. And then you've got this file up here for note styles. Well, you don't need to have both of these files open anymore, because now that they're linked, Dreamweaver is going to have it showing right here where I can go back and forth in the same window and change between them. So really quickly, clicking on the note styles up at the top where you're just looking at your CSS, want to make sure it's saved, no asterisk, so hit Control S if you need to, and then you can close it. And now that they're linked, you can just pop between your source code of your HTML and the CSS style sheet right here. So we can make changes here as well. So like I can go body is a font, or is a color of green. And you'll see that when I click up here, the first line will change to green because it's applying to everything. And then on the source code, the body over here is taking over, and the paragraph over here is taking over for red. So it's then applying green, then red to all four of these, and then the purple is taking over, applying purple to this one. So it's important to note that if I add more text here, like my name is Sylvius, that it will be green because it isn't a paragraph tag being overridden with new styles. All right, so that's how you can create an external style sheet. You can see any changes you make is with asterisks. Again, you can save. You can also go to File, Save All, which will save all of the files at the same time, removing an asterisk on both your CSS and your HTML at the same time. All right, so at this point, I want to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We don't really need our internal style sheet anymore. We don't really need this inline style. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the purple inline style. I'm going to take this style text for the body in the paragraph. I'm going to right click, cut that, or Control X. And I'm going to go to my note styles, and I'm going to go to the end and paste it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of combine these. So paragraph had a font family, of Arial and a color of red, and the body had a background color of tan. And then I can remove those tags and still have the same information, but not haul those different styles. And then at that point, I can delete my style tag in my head. All right, so I'm going to go File, Save All, and now you've learned the difference between an inline, internal, and external style sheets. Externals are best because if you create more pages and changes on that, they all link together and work together. Something else I want to point out about Dreamweaver is that you now have these little arrow keys just like you did in CodePen where you can collapse different tags. This is super helpful when you're trying to see things, so just kind of keep that in mind as you're moving through. Your assignment is going to be to create a web page. So you can create stuff in here. You can create headers just like you would here, like this is my header. And you can then go to your style sheet and you can style it. So just like you would in CodePen, you can call upon the header, give it a background color of like green. And when you do that, you can then go back if you need to. Don't forget that you can hit the spacebar at any time and refresh this, and there's your page. So you've got your header, and it's got a background style green. Why can't you see the text unless you highlight it? Because your color of your text is green in your body, which means you got green on green. So if you wanted to see the color of the text here, you could put color black, and that would override the green color of the body, and you could then see this is my header. We can add a height of like 20%. We could add a width of 80%. And you can see as you continue to change things, it will adjust. Height is kind of interesting because it's only going to go as high as the page exists, and that's pretty much at this point. If I change this to like 500 pixels, you'll be able to see it will adjust and become larger. So you can create boxes, you can put stuff inside boxes, all the things that you could do in CodePen, you can do here as well. So just kind of keep that in mind for your next assignment, which is going to be able to create a Lego website layout. You're going to need to define a new site. So you're going to need to manage a site and create a folder for Lego and begin creating all of that. The instructions will guide you through that, but if you need to, don't worry. You can always come back to these videos and watch them again to remember how to manage a site, get the files in here, and make changes.